All right, welcome in Florida Football Insiders Podcast, a little Hurricane Milton edition. We are recording this Tuesday night. We are bound to get you a podcast this week, so a little earlier than normally a Wednesday nighter, but we're going to get this out for you on Wednesday morning. So without further ado, we're not going to have a recap because the guy I'm going to talk to, we're going to recap last week's games, talk a little history, talk a little drama, a little hurricane stuff with my guy TJ Rives, host of the Big 12 Game Day show on Saturdays on TuneIn.
Yep.
With UCF part of the Big 12. He's also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers radio sideline reporter. Don't know how he's going to get to New Orleans yet.
Good
When is he getting to
question.
New Orleans yet? All that's still to be determined. Even though the Buccaneers are in New Orleans, prepping for the game on Sunday with the Saints. Welcome in, my friend.
Hey, listen, it's always good to be with you. Sports right now are secondary. We understand that. So you and I are doing this, obviously, with Hurricane Milton bearing down on the state of Florida, somewhere on the state of Florida. And, we're kind of in the mode right now where we want to be safe. And you're not rooting for this to do anything to anybody else, but you're
Correct.
almost relieved that it looks like it's not going to be a direct hit, at least to the northern part of Tampa Bay. We'll see. This thing could change Wednesday into Wednesday night when it makes landfall. Everybody be safe, be
Yes.
smart, evacuate if they have to evacuate. We're still doing this at a time where people can still evacuate on Tuesday evening. And I was laughing when you were saying it because the cliche is come hell or high water,
Yes,
come
right.
Hurricane Milton and high water. We're going to bring you the Florida Football Insiders podcast, my friend. So I'm here at your service, at your disposal.
Hopefully, if some of you guys may be listening later in the week with a generator on, we appreciate the listening on your
Yep.
podcast platform. We appreciate it. Give you a little levity and a little relief. I know
Yes.
a lot of people are going to be going through some tough times in the next several days here in the state of Florida. So hopefully, we can provide a little relief and a little insight for you as we lead into the weekend. We're going to recap last week. We had some wild games in the state of Florida last week. So let's get right to it, Mr. Reeves. All right. First of all, tell the audience. Tune in radio on Saturdays, correct? With the pregame show, Big 12?
Correct. 9 to noon Eastern time on TuneIn, exclusively Big 12 digital deal with TuneIn. And this channel is free to hear. It is Big 12 radio on TuneIn. They do a 5 day a week morning show that is live in the morning and also replays. They also play live broadcasts of the schools and their games, a game of the week format. I host the Saturday morning preview, the 3 hour Saturday morning preview. So we're going to be previewing everything that goes on in the Big 12. But this week,
UCF
as we have
fans
been
are
doing
UCF fans.
for UCF in Cincinnati, and we'll get into this with all the games. Is that game being played Saturday afternoon? Is it moved to Saturday night? You and I don't know that right now on Tuesday, depending on what goes on with Hurricane Milton. But that becomes an enormous game for UCF off the back-to-back losses. If they have any hope of salvaging the Big 12 season here, they got to bow their back and beat Cincinnati. So again, I do a lot of different things, a lot of different places, but I love previewing the Big 12 every Saturday in this relationship with TuneIn. And it's a fascinating conference because just when you thought it was going to be Utah and Oklahoma State and then everybody else, Oklahoma State now has 3 consecutive losses to start the Big 12 season, and Utah took a loss to Arizona. So I don't think it's wrong to say that between Arizona, Utah, Iowa State, BYU. There's 16 teams in this conference. Out of those 4 or 5 teams, it's wide open, Jason, right now in
And
the
you
Big
got a
12.
massive game, Kansas State.
Yes.
Colorado's back in the mix now, beating
Winner of
UCF.
that game is clearly in the mix. So can Coach Prime's team stand prosperity when last we
Right.
saw them, speaking of Orlando, they bashed the UCF Knights in the second half of that game and now have had a week off. Kansas State, when last we saw them, ripped Oklahoma State. They've had a week off. This is a late night game Saturday night, so that will be fascinating as well because the winner, again, is very relevant at the top of the Big 12.
And before we get into the Florida teams, give me a quick thought. The carnage last week, a week we didn't think was going to be a very good week on the calendar, schedule wise, turned out to be an unbelievable week with Alabama falling at Vanderbilt, Arkansas beating Tennessee. We had some drama. The wild finish, which we're going to get into at Miami and Cal. Just give me a thought or two about last week.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was looking like had Cal hung on, if, that the whole top 10 was going to be jumbled with all the different upsets. It's the first time in over 40 years that two SEC teams both lose in the top five teams to an unranked team on the same Saturday. I still haven't figured out days later how Vanderbilt did all that to Alabama, especially outscoring them offensively. And then Arkansas was the opposite. It was more like
Defense.
suffocate Tennessee, play defense, low scoring game, and they win. And that's some backdrop for the Tennessee Florida game. But you're right. I mean, this thing is shades of 2007. Remember, nobody could stand prosperity up at the top in 2007. And that is the year that we ended up having a two-loss LSU play a two-loss Ohio State for the BCS national title game, a game that I was at, the BCS title game in the Superdome. That '07 year, remember, had USF get all the way up to the number 2 spot and
Right.
lose.
To West
Boston
Virginia.
College, West Virginia, they all got up to the number 2 spot, and everybody kept losing as the number 2 team when you
Right.
only needed to be number 1 or number 2 to go to it. I don't know that we're to that extent yet, but it is a crazy time right now in college football.
All right, let's go to Berkeley. Saturday night, late night, 10:30 start. I know you were asleep probably when this game ended. I'm not sure because
Yes.
it didn't end till almost 2 o'clock in the morning, if not a little bit after two
Most of the country that was in the Eastern time zone probably gave up on this with
at
Cal leading
35-10.
by 25 points in the second half, only to wake up Sunday and go, what? Wait a minute. What a job. What a job by Miami, Mario Cristobal's team, and Cam Ward, the transfer quarterback, cool under pressure as they ripped off 3 touchdowns in the final 9 minutes
Yep.
and are now very relevant, Jason. The Canes are very relevant for the ACC title and the college football playoff with that comeback.
And you wonder, is this one of those years where a team of destiny, Miami got the break the week before with the replay overturn against Virginia Tech. They
Yep.
come back from 20 down with 9 minutes to go, even when the referees call a bogus, unsportsmanlike foul against Miami on the last drive that pushed them back another 15 yards that they had to overcome that. You had a close, it ended up being the right call where linemen were close to being downfield on the winning touchdown, but it was the right call.
Right.
Cam Ward,
Non-call. Right. They were actually blocking guys, so they're allowed to be downfield. Right. There was some controversy on the internet and
Cam
stuff, but
Cam Ward was about a half a leg from being over the line of scrimmage on a throw that led to the 5-yard line, first and goal.
I
I
mean,
mean,
but
just
still, they look like a
crazy.
team of destiny, like you said. Now, I did not get to hear your official take on Florida Football Insiders here or the Powers on Sports podcast. You do a great job with these. Did you agree with the overturn on the Virginia Tech play when they called on the field touchdown? Did you believe there was enough on that replay to overturn it and cost Miami the perfect season? Because that's the last play of the game. I called it the Fail Mary 2, the sequel to the bad Seahawks Packers ending with the replacement refs on Monday Night Football. That was Fail Mary 1, where they got it wrong. Here, I thought they got it right on the field, and replay got it wrong. What did you think?
It was close, man. I mean, there's absolutely an argument to be made. Whatever they called on the field could not be conclusively overturned. We talked to Coach Levitt last week, Jim Levitt, and I asked him. I said, "Would you have been taken off in handcuffs if they'd have overturned that?" And he goes, "Yup, I'd have been going to jail if they'd have overturned that against me." But
Yes.
but I made this comment to Coach Levitt too, and I know that this will never be admitted, never be talked about. But with Miami being the clear-cut favorite in the ACC, did the ACC conference figure out a way to overturn that call to keep Miami in the national championship?
I don't think it's a factor in that room,
No, but
but as long as they took forever to
yes,
overrule that. You give fuel to the conspiracy theorist on exactly what you're talking about, that there are tens of millions of dollars at stake in the college football playoff. And if Miami takes the L there, it greatly damages
the
their
ACC,
case outside of the ACC championship game and the automatic bid. So it's really Miami and Clemson, and what they don't play. They
right?
don't play in the regular season, and the Canes don't play this weekend. And then Miami has an interesting couple of games at
Yes,
Louisville, and then the rivalry game at home at the end of the month with Florida State, although Florida State is a hot mess. Florida State is a dumpster fire right now. But still, I mean, the Canes have a couple of landmines coming up. But the fascinating thing is, Jason, they don't play Clemson in the regular season here.
correct.
So we'll see if they can get to the finish line unbeaten.
And again, give Mario Cristobal credit. This would have been a game he'd have lost the last couple of years. They would not have figured out a way to win this game. And Cam Ward clearly is the difference in Miami with the quarterback play. The thing they don't have
Is
it.
he in the Heisman conversation
Oh,
right now, Cam Ward?
oh, absolutely. He's one. He's probably one or two in the country, I think, for the Heisman. Probably him and Travis Hunter today is probably 1, 2 in the Heisman Trophy race, in my view. Through 6 weeks, it's early. We're halfway
Shador
home.
Sanders has to be in the conversation somewhere, probably not top two.
Right.
Jalen Milroe at Alabama. I know
Out
they
without a
lost last
loss.
week, but I mean they still are going to have a bunch of
Yep.
big games and a chance to get back in it. But other than that,
But
you're maybe
today,
talking Cam Ward, you're talking Travis Hunter. I don't know. We'll
yep.
see for the
And the
Heisman.
kid
But
and the kid
Miami,
probably from Boise State, the running
yes,
back.
Ashton Genty is his name.
Yes.
Who did I see the stats that they looked back at Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, and there was another running back that's recently won the Heisman, and they looked at their first 6 games. And in all 6 of their games, I'm just going to do this off the top of my head. None of them had more than 600 yards rushing, and none of them had more than like 6 touchdowns. Derrick Henry had 6
Right.
touchdowns. Mark Ingram had like 5 through 6 games. Through 6 games, Ashton Genty has 1,100 yards and like 12 or 13 touchdowns
Oh
already.
yeah.
It's crazy what the numbers are. You can talk about level of competition. He belongs in the conversation right now,
Absolutely.
at least at Boise State. We'll see.
And they're in the hunt for the 12th spot for the
Right.
non-power
The
five
automatic
spot.
group of 5. Right,
Right.
right. On the highest ranked team.
And,
So we'll see on that.
and here's a note for our football fans in the state of Florida, Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans. The offensive coordinator at Boise State, one former Buccaneer head coach, Dirk
How
Cutter.
about that?
How
That
about
is
that?
it is interesting
Who's
how
a former Boise State head coach back in
that's
the
correct.
day, who lives out there. They coached him out of retirement to be the
Yep.
OC.
Yeah, so it's fascinating where they are working on the group of 5 thing, and we're eventually going to work our way to Memphis and USF and how
Yep.
that might could factor in for the group of 5 for Memphis and the American Conference. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye on right now that there is going to be one automatic qualifier for the college football playoff. It's the highest ranked of those teams that are not in the Power Four conferences.
All right, let's go to Florida State. 1-5. Clemson beats them pretty good. Interesting if you're a betting person, a late field goal by Clemson to cover the number. Just so happened they kick a field goal like a minute and a half left in the game to cover the number. But boy, just give me a thought or two about what a disastrous year up in
Yeah,
Tallahassee.
the thing that I was struck by is that game should have been a 30-point game, and Florida
Yes.
State was very fortunate that Clemson was kicking field goals. They couldn't convert a third down a couple of times in the red zone. Florida State blocked the field goal, and it's like Clemson was almost just toying with them in the fourth quarter and had the game won as the Dabo revenge tour is coming back around. And I really don't know what to make of it. I mean, they're not going to fire Mike Norvell,
No.
but I mean, they owe him $60 million after giving him a new deal. What are these presidents and
Right.
boards and boosters doing, agreeing to these deals over and over again, where to get rid of a coach, you've got to pay them 40, 50, 60 million dollars. How do we not get one of those deals, Jason Powers? So they're not getting rid of Norvell, but this season unraveled so quickly with his stubbornness. And he's even saying on the record that when DJU, the quarterback, is healthy, they're going to go back to him. What? I mean, why do you say that right now? I don't understand that with as bad as that offense is and how much he's regressed as a quarterback. How do you give your team any hope when you're talking about, you can say, well, when he's healthy, we'll evaluate it week to
Right.
week on how he looks
Right.
in practice and how the games look. How do you declare, as he did earlier this week, that when DJU's healthy, he's going to be our guy? It's strange with Norvell right
And
now.
it'll be interesting to see if his philosophy of how he assembles his roster moving forward. Too much portal, in my opinion. You got to recruit high school kids and supplement it a little bit of spot here and there with the portal. You cannot live and die in the portal every year.
And that's what Dabo Swinney wants to prove right now,
Right.
because he doesn't have transfers.
Right.
And he wants to demonstrate to everybody you can win at the highest level without having to go into the transfer portal. In his case, it's extreme at all, but
Right.
certainly not as deep as Florida State did. And they've got a group of talented individuals that aren't playing well as a team, obviously, at this point.
Let's go to Gainesville. Impressive win by the Gators over UCF on Saturday night. Again, they had control of the game
Hey,
most of the game.
I'm laughing because 3 weeks ago we were writing the obituary for Billy Napier. They win at Mississippi State,
Right.
who's awful. They take a week off, and a lot of people were pointing to this game, a game where for much of the week on the point spread lines, on
UCF
all of the
was
different
favored.
betting outlets, UCF was favored in Gainesville, and Florida really dominated the
They
game.
did.
I mean, Final score maybe not as indicative of, again, here we go. They were 3 or 4 touchdowns better in that game than UCF. Just better talent on defense for sure. KJ Jefferson has regressed. Obviously, this ties back into UCF. Billy Napier needed that desperately
Absolutely.
because now he's going into this stretch. What is it again? Tennessee, Georgia, in no particular
Texas.
order. Texas is involved. Ole Miss is involved. It is a monster end of the season where how many wins are there for Florida starting in Knoxville this coming Saturday night?
All right, give me a story on this rivalry. Florida, Tennessee, obviously is a storied rivalry in the SEC over the years. Spurrier and Phil
Oh yeah.
Fulmer, Spurrier and Manning, Urban Meyer and company.
Oh yeah.
Give me a little story about
All
Florida,
right, so some
Tennessee.
nostalgia for you. This is 30 years ago now. My God, am I that old? I am the 5-day-a-week sports radio host in Tampa Bay, which is a massive Florida Gator town at that time. Remember, USF, South Florida's not even playing football yet. Till a few years later, they have a football program. So it was primarily Florida, Florida State, and Miami conversation all the time in the college football season. And I had seen what Tennessee had done to Florida previously in Knoxville. And Florida was rolling in with Steve Spurrier and company, Danny Warfel and company in the 1994 game in Knoxville. And I remember over and over again fighting with Florida fans. I think this is Tennessee. I think this is Tennessee outright, the equalizer at home. And you and I went back and double checked and looked. Jack Jackson returned the opening kickoff almost for a touchdown. Danny Warfel lit Tennessee up. That was Todd Helton as the Tennessee quarterback, eventually replaced in that game by some guy named Peyton Manning as a freshman late in the game. Tennessee donut did not score. And I still remember this. For those that are watching and hearing this, that remember the famous Tampa Bay sportscasters of the early days, 1970s, 80s, and early 90s. Andy Hardy was the famous Channel 13 local sportscaster in Tampa Bay. Had the slicked back hair and the whole thing. Andy Hardy was the guy on Channel 13 weeknights at 6 and 11. All right, I remember the day after that game was a Buccaneer home game. And again, I'm a 5-day-a-week sports radio host, and it wasn't well known what I looked like. You knew what I sounded like on the radio, but it wasn't well known what I looked like because I wasn't on TV. This is back 30 years ago.
A young, good-looking man from Plant High School.
So the Plant High grad is walking up to Andy Hardy, who's standing there smiling at me. And I said, Andy, I'm TJ Rives. He goes, I know who you are. He goes, you're going to have a rough one on Monday with the Gator fans. That's what he said to me on the Sunday. That's the first time I met Andy Hardy, is he's like, you're going to have a rough one with the Gator fans. I said, you're absolutely right. He goes, I heard you all week. And he goes, none of it turned out to be right. So it's very true. That's 30 years ago. And by the way, the Gators in that stretch owned Peyton Manning. He never beat them, by the way. Never. The Gator fan famous phrase is you couldn't spell Citrus Bowl without UT for Tennessee and Peyton Manning. So they ridiculed him. They beat him over and over again with Tennessee. So it's interesting in this rivalry because Urban Meyer had a ton of success against Tennessee, but as of late, the Vols, have had some success with Jeremy Pruitt even before he disgraced himself, and now Josh Heupel in this series. This is at Knoxville. This is Tennessee angry off the loss. Again, Napier's team got their act together some.
Has been playing a little better.
Do I say it again? I'm fearful of how they look in Knoxville. 30 years later, I'm saying the same thing about Florida and Knoxville, Jason.
And I also want to give a shout out to our guy Vince Ferrara. If you're interested in Tennessee coverage, go to 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville. Google that. Our guy Vince Ferrara is the morning show host there. Does all kind of stuff pregame and postgame.
Tampa brother from another mother, Vince up there in Knoxville. And again, for the Vols, this is a high wire act. This is a high wire act for the SEC title game. They've already lost a game now, and they haven't even gotten into the mix with Georgia and some of the rest of their schedule. Alabama later in the year. So they got to have this Saturday night in prime time.
Yep. All right. Let's go to Memphis and USF. I'm sorry, Memphis, USF.
Memphis and USF, right.
So quick update. The game has been moved from Friday to Saturday already.
We think it's Saturday. We think it's Saturday at 3:30.
It ain't Friday, though. We know it ain't Friday.
We know it's not Friday night. It was to have been an ESPN standalone game. Right. but right now it is part of their onslaught of games on Saturday
3:30
afternoon,
and the
and that
3:30.
is to be determined. It has not been announced
Right.
officially yet,
Right.
and that is because of Hurricane Milton, and we don't know what's going to happen, Jason. And the biggest key about this is, let's say there is a southward turn of the hurricane, as we play meteorologists on Florida Football Insiders here on the pod, but there is still the need for Tampa police, Hillsborough County sheriffs,
Yes.
the EMS, the fire to go elsewhere and help. How do you staff a game at Raymond James Stadium on Friday night or Saturday when you don't have enough police for traffic control, for
Right.
safety in the stadium? You don't have enough EMS personnel for safety in the stadium, etc. It takes several hundred people to staff a game like this
Yes.
at Raymond James Stadium. So that's why it's fluid. It's fluid as to whether or not they're going to play, Jason, Saturday afternoon. So at the time we're taping this, they hope to play Saturday afternoon. Maybe it's Saturday night. And dare we say it's maybe Sunday. And there is precedent for that. 2 years ago with Hurricane Ian, as it came ashore in Southwest Florida, we didn't know. They didn't know in Gainesville that
Right.
this wasn't going to hit and come right through Gainesville. So they postponed their Saturday game with Eastern Washington, an out-of-conference
Yep.
payday
Yep.
game, and played Sunday afternoon 2 years ago in late September. So it's not unheard of that the game could be Sunday. We're not saying it's Sunday. We're saying stay tuned. And it's a huge game for Memphis
Yes.
trying to stay alive in the American Athletic Conference because they already have a loss. They took a loss to Navy. They can't take a second loss with Army and Navy both undefeated up at the top. Tulane looking very good at the top as well.
Yep.
Memphis doesn't play Army later in the year. They do play Tulane at Tulane. But this is a big game for Memphis, for my alma mater, when they come to town, whenever this game is going to be played.
Give me a thought or two about just the last 2 to 3 weeks for USF. A lot of hype going into the Miami game. They played them well for a half, got blown out in the second half, and then completely laid an egg on the road at
Yeah.
Tulane, to really derail their
Tulane,
season leading to a bye
Tulane
week.
smoked them, and then Tulane turned around and smoked Alabama Birmingham, UAB. So
My
Tulane
guys.
appears
Yep.
to be good. You were at that Miami game. How much did it take out of them? The second half, the fourth quarter, and I know the quarterback, Byron Brown, is also injured now.
Yep.
It's debatable as to whether he can play in this Memphis game. But do you believe that Miami game took a lot out of USF real quick?
I do emotionally. I don't think as much physically. I think emotionally it did because I think there was a real path in theory if they could have beaten Miami. They played them well for a half. You beat Miami, you beat Tulane, you beat Memphis. All of a sudden, you got a real shot here in the AAC. But boy, I was just really disappointed how bad they played at Tulane. And Tulane's been good the last several years,
Yeah,
but
they
they
were
got
never in
manhandled.
it.
They just got
They were
destroyed.
down what, 31-0 in the second quarter
Yes,
and never in it.
that's the
So
disappointing
now
part.
USF schedule a little more favorable here after this Memphis game. If they somehow could win this, if they play UAB at home, who's a mess under
Yep.
former Buccaneer quarterback Trent Dilfer, then you're at FAU. Now, that's a
Winnable.
revenge game from
Yep.
FAU beating them badly with Tom Herman's team and running the score up on them. Remember, Herman kicked an onside kick in Tampa last year, up by 35 points in the
Right.
second half.
Right.
And I don't think they've forgotten that on Fowler Avenue at USF. But then the problem for the Bulls is then they have Navy here at home as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of landmines, and they have the one loss already in American Conference play, and this will not be easy. Memphis can throw the football with Seth Hennigan and that warp speed. The Bulls better be ready to score some points and outscore Memphis come Saturday or Sunday or whenever they play this, Jason.
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement 3 weeks ago. Now there's a big needle in the balloon that just took the air out of that program. The last 3 weeks, we got to see them recover and rebound to get back because you don't want this to turn into a 5-6 game losing streak because of a Miami game. So
Well, right. And if Brown, the quarterback, is hurt,
right.
I mean, they have a couple of other weapons, but Alex Golish was a hot name at the
Yep.
beginning of the year.
Yep.
And now you've taken some losses, and I don't know how hot a name he is right now at the moment. And let's see. Well, I mean, what kind of crowd is there for
Right.
the
That's
Memphis
the other
game,
thing.
depending on when it's played? Stay tuned. Stay tuned on that.
So you mentioned FAU. FAU plays Saturday, North Texas. We won't get into that much, but they're home against North Texas. FIU is playing. We're recording this Tuesday night. They're playing right now, and it's 17-16. They're down 1 point at Liberty. So they're playing one of the Tuesday night games. They're down 17-16 at Liberty, which Liberty's 4-0, so that's a good start for a good first half for FIU, Mike McIntyre. So keep that up. But they're playing right now Tuesday night
Right,
at
you'll know
West
that
Florida.
result as the week goes on, and again, we gotta remain vigilant here, because you're mentioning about FAU and their
Right.
game, or UCF and their
Right.
game. What's this hurricane going to do once it makes landfall in Florida, and how does that affect any other football
How much
that might be
damage?
going on
Right.
the state as well? Yeah.
All right, you listen to TJ Rives, Florida Football Insiders podcast. He's sideline. He'll be in New Orleans Sunday with the Buccaneers and the Saints. He also hosts the Big 12 Game Day pregame show on Saturday mornings, 9 to 12 Eastern Time on TuneIn. You can get on the TuneIn app for free and listen to that. If you're looking for anything Big 12 related, TJ does a great job putting together coaches interviews,
Yep.
analysts, all kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Give me a thought about a guy who got out of the state of Florida in the Big 12. Rocco Beck takes his
Oh,
undefeated Iowa State team up to West Virginia, where his dad is getting inducted into the West Virginia
yep.
Hall of Fame,
What a
Anthony Beck.
what a weekend. Love the Beck family. Have known the Becks for the better part of 20 years, ever since Rocco was born,
And he's a
by
Tampa
the way.
kid. He's a Tampa
How
kid.
did he get out of our area? I'm sorry, Mike Norvell wasn't recruiting Rocco Beck. How
Yep.
about Alex Golish? How about Jeff Scott before that?
How about UCF?
How were they not recruiting Rocco Beck at Wiregrass Ranch High School in the Tampa Bay area? And Rocco now distinguishing himself in his redshirt sophomore year at Iowa State as a dual threat. Again, this is one of the marquee games right now, with Iowa State undefeated and a chance to win in Morgantown. And Anthony's got to be conflicted. I mean, he is all about WVU most of the time, but
Right.
this is his son. This is his son rolling into Morgantown, and they did the Hall of Fame induction 2 weeks ago, but Anthony couldn't be there because he was at Rocco's game.
Right.
Now they're going to honor him at halftime as part of the Hall of Fame class as a former All Big East tight end, a former #1 pick in the NFL draft. What a story this is if Iowa State can get to 6-0, and a West Virginia team that blasted Oklahoma State last week on the road. Fascinating game. Our buddy Tim Brando, and Devin Gardner are working the game on Fox. I'm fascinated to watch that one Saturday night as well.
And again, this is a monster weekend for college football. You got Texas, Oklahoma,
Yep.
Oregon, Ohio State.
Wow.
This game, the Iowa State game's a big game. Colorado, Kansas State's a really good game. You got Penn State at USC, big game. So you got a lot. This is a big weekend, a big slate of games. So
Oh yeah.
throughout
A
the
lot
country.
of now the thing is a lot of jockeying for who's going to be where.
Yep.
But just like the Alabama loss to Vanderbilt, all right, in recent years that may have croaked you for the college football playoff
Right.
with only 4 teams. It doesn't croak you now to take a loss.
Right.
So for whoever loses some of those games that you were talking about, Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, if Penn State takes a loss at USC, who took a loss last week to Minnesota, it doesn't croak your season to take a loss here. It didn't croak Tennessee either to lose at Arkansas. So stay tuned, because the playoff is what we're going to remember more when we get to December. And how do those teams over those 4 weekends fare in the playoff is what we'll remember more starting this year.
All right, last thing we'll get you on there. Let me do a couple NFL nuggets with the Florida teams. Obviously, Miami wins in New England. They're on a bye week this week. We don't know what the status of Tua is coming out of the bye. Probably won't play for another couple of weeks, I would imagine, at the earliest. Jacksonville finally gets their first win, almost blows a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Colts, but they figure out a way to get it done. And then your Buccaneers, a wild game last Thursday night in Atlanta. Give me a thought or two about the Buccaneers Atlanta game,
Yeah.
being there on the sidelines.
They had that shoulda, coulda, woulda. They had it 3 different times at the end with the blocked field goal. Bucky Irving gets the first down late in the game and the clock's rolling, and then he fumbles right after that, gets stripped on first down. And then they still get the Levante David interception right after that and can't run the clock out. So
the missed face mask, which would have been an offsetting penalty.
Give the Falcons credit, but it should have never come down to the last second field goal to put it in overtime, much less the overtime TD. And now they've had to relocate to New Orleans with the threat of the hurricane, preparing all week in New Orleans for the game in the Superdome. And we have found out late word that Derek Carr's injury on Monday Night Football, right, is going to be a significant injury, correct?
The reports are he's going to be out multiple weeks, so you're probably going to see Jake Hayner, the second-year kid out of Fresno State,
Wow.
who played a little bit last night on the Monday night game. You'll see him play most likely.
But Buccaneer fans, what do we keep saying about first-time starters and rookie quarterbacks? We saw it with Bo Nix. It's whatever bugaboo, voodoo, juju there is with first-time quarterbacks or rookie quarterbacks. So that's going to be in the Superdome, and I'm fascinated to see because this is now a very winnable game. Can
Yes.
Antoine Winfield come back? We'll know that answer later this week. He's been hurt the last 4 games he's missed. They miss
Is
him
Kalijah
badly.
Cansey coming back,
Yeah,
maybe?
so if the Bucks get a little healthier here, this could be advantage Buccaneers in the Superdome to get back on the winning track and get to 4-2.
And I'll give our fans a little baseball nugget about a kid from the state of Florida. Pete Alonso, the first baseman for the
Oh,
Mets,
oh
went to
yeah.
your high school, Plant High
Plant
School,
High School, baby.
and he hit
Pete
a home run
Alonso.
on Tuesday night early in the Phillies Mets game in Game 3 in New York tonight. So,
Love it. You
Pete,
cover all bases. Oh, here,
yeah,
Pete
man.
Alonso playing high school along with Wade Boggs and me, and fascinating. Aaron Murray, the former Georgia
Mike
quarterback.
Williams, the wide receiver from USC, is a Plant High School
Love it.
kid.
Love it.
You got
We
lots of
cover it
guys.
all on Florida Football Insiders. It's going to be a wild weekend. Everybody be safe with Hurricane Milton as it comes ashore. We don't know what kind of damage. We hope that it's not severe wherever it is, obviously. And then what happens with USF and Memphis, UCF and Cincinnati. Stay tuned. Stay tuned later in the week.
All right, check out as part of my other podcast. I do Powers on Sports podcast. I have a former my buddy Anthony Blevins, who's a former NFL assistant coach. He's on the podcast. We talk all things NFL,
Yep.
a lot
Yep.
of storylines NFL. TJ, you're the host of the Last Word on Sports, part of that podcast platform. I know you're doing Three Dog Thursday as well.
Yep. Yep. Too many
So
podcasts. Probably just follow me on social media at Buck Sideline Guy, BUC, Buck Sideline Guy. And again, the Tune In Big 12 Game Day shows Saturdays, 9 to noon Eastern time, every Saturday, previewing the action as well. Can't wait to watch all of this unfold. Everybody stay safe. Jason, stay safe. Everybody in the
absolutely.
audience, stay safe. With the hurricane, let's come out on the other side. There's going to be damage. There's going to be flood water. We
Be nice
understand
to your
all
neighbors.
this.
Help your neighbors if
Help
they
the
need it.
neighbors out, and help those out that don't have power, that don't have food, etc. Let's get through this as best we can for the next few days. Great to be with you, my friend.
You got it. All right. Thanks for finding us. Remember, subscribe, rate, and review. YouTube channel, the Jason Power Sports channel. You can find TJ stuff. Three Dog Thursday YouTube channel. It's part of all the stuff he's doing. Just Google search it and you will find it. He does awesome stuff every week with the video stuff as well. So check us out. Subscribe, rate, and review. Hit the like button if you haven't already done so. We'd love to hear your comments at JPO Sports for me, at Buck Sideline Guy for TJ. Again, listen to the Buccaneer. Real quick, tell them where they can listen to the Buccaneers.
Buccaneer Radio Network, 98 Rock, the Bucks mobile app, and all the affiliates. SiriusXM will be there Sunday in New Orleans.
You got it. 1:00 game, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
God willing.
Appreciate you finding us on the Florida Football Insiders podcast, and we will see you next week, safe and healthy. Have a great week.